even before COVID, right, regulation was always this, top-sided hurdle for investments into Africa and for getting business done in Africa. And so as we're looking, post COVID-19 at the investment that's going to be flowing around the world, it's going to surely be competitive. What are the top, regulatory amendments that will make Africa more competitive for global investment? And
I think that African regulators are facing a particularly challenging situation at the moment, with the combination of three massive crises for the oil and gas industry. We've been for a number of years now in a structural state of crisis in the oil and gas industry because of massive overproduction of both oil and gas, which has depressed prices, combined with this very unfortunate global pandemic of coronavirus, and a massive push for an acceleration towards energy transition. In this context, the appetite for investment in hydrocarbons in general, in Africa in particular, is very low. So the headache for African investors is to find the right balance to make sure they continue to develop the oil and gas industry, attract oil and gas investors, and at the same time capture a reasonable share of what they should have. So the task is really difficult. African governments are going to have to work a little bit faster than before to have the ability to adjust the petroleum regime to this change of economic circumstances. And we all know that this is not particularly easy because the legislative process in Africa is particularly long.
Where we are, I look at the issue, there's regulatory issues that I'll talk about in just a minute. There's clearly what Jovita is talking about with the optimization of the process and doing things better, smarter, quicker, cheaper, using the cloud. It will improve economics, but that will apply everywhere. That will apply globally to what Exxon is doing, BP is doing, or my little company, WTD Resources. I think what we need to really focus on for the African continent is in this realm of, I call it sanctity of contract. Nicolas mentioned yesterday that maybe there's some discussion around a model production sharing agreement so that we have a uniform approach to this. Time kills deals. There's no doubt about that. And if we are stuck in negotiation on a PSA for a year or so, people are going to go, I think I'm going to go in another direction. So
COVID-19, this pandemic has sort of brought to bear a lot of inadequacies and a lot of problems that most of the African countries have been facing and continue to face for so long. With local content, something that sort of I have experienced during this pandemic is just the fact that it became really evident that, the local companies, even though a country like Nigeria has had this local content for so many years, I think since the 2000s, these companies are still heavily dependent on foreign partnerships, foreign influences, foreign investments, everything. Even though you have local partners and local, engineers and all of that in place, they still sort of no skills transfer, no technology transfers. They're still heavily dependent on, the system being run by foreigners. And that's really became very evident during, this period because people were unable to travel. So the guys abroad had to sort of talk to the guys on ground to run sort of some technical aspects of the process. And it sort of shows you how much dependent, the local companies are. And that for me just shows that there's a need to sort of push that local content, not just in law and in name, but in enforcement, in implementation. So the law's been there, but it seems like the implementation has been sort of weak. And so the structures cannot stand without foreign inputs.
So when you look at the different sectors of our economy, there are more fundamental issues that we need to address. So when we're even speaking about regulatory reform, part of what we need to emphasize is in doing the reform, it should be more about processes and less about the individuals occupying positions at a particular time. The way we're structured right now, there's too much power centered around individual personalities. And if a person doesn't like you, then you're just going to be stuck there. I've had situations where I have lost contracts because the person in power expects something from me, and I've decided I'm going to operate my business in an ethical manner, and I will not do what you're expecting me to do. And the result of that is I lose a contract. But that's the price you pay for wanting to do things in a way that agrees with your values. But then it's detrimental to the country, because then what you will end up doing is engaging another contractor who is going to inflate the cost of doing the project. And we see that all across our nation. So you would see a project that is done in an African country that maybe costs $1 billion. You go to the next country, an almost identical project is costing $7 billion, and you're asking why? How is that possible?
As a body, we want to take a look, treat COVID-19 as the opportunity for us to develop a resilient, what I call the intelligent supply chain, right? Where we want to make sure that we identify those areas where we totally or mostly rely on outside, call it imported skills and services, bring them inside our countries, and remove the capabilities for us to always want to bring in these people.
So any amendments really should be focused on the fiscal and legal frameworks. And, you know, I won't get into specifics, but there should be recognition that the fiscal and legal frameworks are the logical drivers to attract more competition and to keep those companies currently engaged from exiting the country during bad times. So, you know, you can have production contracts, you can have PSCs, service agreements. Every country kind of has gone through that. Whatever the flavor is, there should be a recognition for changing economics due to COVID or other crises, which undermine the investors' ability to continue their projects.